They said fear was proof of faith, that trembling before the divine made you pure. But what if fear was never sacred? What if it was the oldest weapon ever used against the human mind? Because fear doesn't create believers, it creates control. This is the fear formula, a psychological blueprint used for millennia to weaponize the human brain. It's a mechanism so subtle, so deeply embedded in our culture, that we often mistake its chains for a sacred embrace. Today, we're not attacking faith. We're dissecting the anatomy of control, revealing how fear, disguised as holiness, has shaped human history and the very wiring of your mind. Welcome to a journey into the shadows where obedience was crafted and the price of questioning was your soul. Let's begin our descent with number 5, the God reflex. Our brains are pattern-finding machines. We evolved on the savannas, connecting the rustle in the grass with the predator, the dark clouds with the coming storm. Survival depended on finding agency in the chaos. But what happens when this ancient instinct is turned inward, toward the mysteries of existence? We begin to see a hand guiding the lightning, a mind behind the flood. This is where the seed of fear takes root. The psychologist Carl Jung spoke of archetypes, universal symbols born from our collective unconscious. The fear of chaos, of the unknown, was externalized, given a face and a name. Gods of order were born from our terror of randomness. Spiritual fear isn't an invention. It's a feature of our survival software, repurposed. They didn't build temples to honor God. They built them to house your fear. Our instinct to find a cause for every effect made us vulnerable, creating a perfect entry point for systems that promised answers but demanded obedience in return. This brings us to number 4. The threat of eternal punishment. Once the gods were established, the stakes had to be raised. It wasn't enough to fear a bad harvest. You had to fear for your very soul forever. The concepts of hell, karmic retribution, or divine wrath are not just stories. They are sophisticated psychological tools that activate the brain's limbic system, the same primal circuits that fire when you face physical danger. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a hungry lion and an angry god. Both trigger a fight or flight response. The threat of eternal damnation keeps the nervous system in a low-grade state of chronic stress. Sigmund Freud called this internalized authority the superego. It's the voice in your head that judges you, the celestial warden that punishes not just your actions, but your thoughts. This is the genius of the formula. The punishment becomes inescapable because the crime is thinking itself. The threat doesn't have to be real, it only has to be believed. And in that belief, your behavior is conditioned, your choices are narrowed, and your compliance is secured. The brain doesn't know the difference between divine wrath and human control. Now we explore number 3, the guilt spiral. If eternal punishment is the stick, guilt is the invisible cage. It's one of the most powerful tools for emotional manipulation ever devised. Belief systems often frame human nature as inherently flawed, sinful, or impure from birth. This creates a psychological debt that can never be fully repaid. Every mistake, every impure thought, every natural human desire becomes evidence of your unworthiness. This isn't just simple remorse. It's what psychoanalyst Karen Horney called neurotic guilt, a pervasive feeling of being bad that paralyzes the self. You become your own jailer. Thinkers like Erich Fromm argued that humanity has a deep-seated fear of true freedom because freedom comes with unbearable responsibility. Systems of control offer an escape from freedom by providing a pre-approved path. Follow the rules, confess your sins, and you will be temporarily absolved, only to fall back into the guilt spiral again. It's a self-perpetuating cycle of shame and relief. And here lies the most insidious part. You don't need chains when the prisoner polices their own mind. Guilt ensures you're always looking over your own shoulder, moderating your own thoughts before they can even form into questions. This leads us to number 2, the obedience reward loop. Fear and guilt are powerful, but they aren't enough to sustain control long term. The system needs a positive reinforcement, a light at the end of the tunnel. This is where the promise of reward comes in. Heaven, nirvana, divine favor, a sense of purity. This creates a powerful dopamine loop. When you obey, you feel righteous, approved, and safe. Your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical associated with pleasure and reward. When you question or transgress, you feel fear and guilt, and that dopamine hit is withdrawn. This is classical behaviorism, as outlined by B.F. Skinner. Your behavior is shaped through a simple but brutal calculus of reward and punishment. Loyalty is manufactured. Every prayer that brings a sense of peace, every ritual that offers a feeling of belonging, reinforces the neurological pathway that links obedience with well-being. The system makes you an addict for its approval. You start to crave the feeling of being good and fear the emptiness of being lost. The promised reward is always just out of reach, ensuring you keep running on the wheel, chasing a salvation that is perpetually offered but never fully granted. When fear wears the mask of faith, the soul forgets it was ever free. Finally, we arrive at number 1, the sacred authority illusion. This is the capstone of the entire structure, the ultimate psychological trick. It's the moment the system convinces you that its rules are not man-made, but divine. The voice of the institution becomes the voice of God. This is where obedience is reframed as love, and questioning is reframed as sin. To doubt the doctrine is to betray the divine itself. The German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche explored this in his analysis of power psychology, where morality is not a divine truth, but a tool used by the powerful to control the masses. He called it a slave morality, one that praises meekness, humility, and obedience, because those traits serve the masters. Niccolò Machiavelli, too, understood that the appearance of morality was a ruler's greatest weapon. By claiming a sacred mandate, authority becomes absolute and unchallengeable. Any intellectual curiosity, any critical thought, is short-circuited by the fear of committing a spiritual crime. This is the final lock on the mental prison. The fear is no longer just of punishment, but of your own mind. And the most haunting revelation of all is this: when you fear to question, someone else owns your thoughts. So where does this leave us? Is all faith a prison? No. This has never been an argument against spirituality, but an awakening from psychological conditioning. The purpose of this journey is not to destroy belief, but to empower you to distinguish it from fear. Faith should never live in fear. Real faith is born in consciousness, not in control. It encourages questions, embraces doubt, and thrives in freedom. The fear formula, however, demands the opposite. It demands your silence, your compliance, and your unquestioning loyalty. Fear may have built the altar, but awareness will tear down the chains. The first step toward liberation is recognizing the architecture of the cage. It's about unlearning the reflexes that were programmed into you. Have you ever mistaken fear for faith? Let us know in the comments by writing, "I'm unlearning the fear formula." Thank you for walking through the shadows with me. If this exploration resonated with you, consider subscribing for more journeys into the human mind. Stay conscious.